Hey guys, welcome back to another training video from my YouTube channel. I haven't posted a video for a while. I'm back, okay, but now I'm back. So I'm back with Linux training. I'm going to teach you how to manage Linux servers, okay? So if you're excited, just stick around and see what I have for you. So this is going to be my introductory video to Linux. I'll be explaining the things you need to know about Linux, the fundamentals to Linux. All right, so before we get started, let's understand what Linux is. Linux is an operating system similar to Windows or Mac OS. Linux is open source, that means it's free to use. Unlike Windows, where they force you to buy license to activate your Windows, with Linux it's free, that means it's open source. Okay, now the Linux operating system is commonly used on web servers because of its stability and enhanced security features. So almost all the servers we have online run Linux in the background as an operating system. Okay, and you know, servers are supercomputers. You can have Windows server and Linux server, but because Linux was designed with security in mind, we use Linux to run our servers. All right, now another thing I like about Linux is that it has several distros. Now if you don't know what distros are, let me explain to you what distros are. So if we talking about distros, okay, distros are the various distributions. Okay, distro, that's the short form for distributions. Because Linux is open source, people have modified the source code to also come out with their own variation of Linux, of the operating system. So we have Ubuntu as a distro, which is an open source operating system. All of them are open source, right? All the things you are seeing here. And right now my PC, the computer I'm using right now, is running Ubuntu. Okay, it's running what? Ubuntu. We have Debian, Alma Linux, Rocky Linux, Linux Mint, and Fedora as the distros. We have other distros, but these are the most popular distributions we have when it comes to the Linux family. Linux can be run on any machine. Your old PC, you can have a Linux operating system installed on your old PC. So most of these distros can be run on your devices. You can convert your PC's operating system to Linux, just like what I have here. So I'm running Linux in the background. All right, okay, so you can equally run Linux on your device. So the desktop version of Linux come with graphic user interfaces, just like what I have here. You see, I have icons, buttons, other things you can click to open things. But Linux on servers do not have these features. So the only way you can interact with Linux on a server is using a command line or CLI, command line interface. You can also call it terminal, and that's what I just opened up. So what you're seeing is a terminal, right? Now this terminal, you can have some commands, and I'm going to show you some of the basic commands. If you type ls, it means you're going to list the content inside your server. So the only way you interact with your server is through a command line interface, and I will showing you how to run some of these commands. These videos are going to be in series. All right, so I have a playlist called Learn Linux. Watch the videos in order. So this is going to be my first video on Linux. So I'm going to clear my screen because I want space, so you just type clear and hit enter, and it's going to clear your screen just like this. Now if you want to know the space you have on your server or your Linux device, in this case this is my desktop, this is my local machine. Knowing the space, you can just type free and hit enter, and it's going to list the space, available space you have here. It will show you your memory total in kilobytes, but we want to have them in a human readable format, so you have to still put free -h. So the H stands for human readable, and it's not going to be in gigs like this. I'll be running most of these commands throughout the whole video trainings, okay, throughout the whole training. All right, so don't worry. So again, we're going to clear our screen, and we have other commands like mv, which is to move. If you want to move a file from one place location to another, we have mv. We also have cp, that's we're going to copy. Okay, so don't worry, I'll be showing you some of these commands as we continue the train. So if you are ready to learn about web servers, how to manage web servers, how to work with web servers, then let's look at our course outline, what we'll be covering in this train. So this is my Linux server course outline, and then these are the things we'll be covering. I'll keep this list updated because I'll be adding more topics to this list, and I'll be creating more content, and I'll add those videos to these videos you are watching, okay, to the playlist. Right, so we're looking at introduction to Linux, and that's what we just did. We'll buy a virtual private server or VPS. We'll connect or SSH into the server. From there, we're going to update our server. After we do all of these things, our next line of action is to protect our server. If not, it's going to be hacked. Whatever website you put there or data you put there, that server is going to be compromised. So we're going to protect our server. So with the server protection, we have a lot to cover. So protecting a Linux server, which is the security aspect, we have basic firewall setup. I'll show you how to set up firewall, how to block and allow access to some ports. Okay, next we're going to protect our server with a non-root user. When connecting to your server, the default user is root, so we're going to remove this default user because we're going to block this default user and give it a different user, something like my new user. Okay, and then that way we'll be able to connect with a unique user. If not, they can hack your website with simple root, which is the default user. So we're going to protect with a non-root user. After going through all these, next we'll block or we'll lock down SSH. That way it will be very hard for any remote user to simply SSH into your server. So the only way you can access your server is through SSH. All right, SSH. So we're going to lock it down, and you'll be the only user having access to SSH. So we're going to generate private and public and secret keys, and the keys will come in two. One will be our public key, and that public key will be pushing it or will be uploading it to the remote server, and we'll keep our private or our secret key on our local machine. That way, when we are connecting those two devices, your local machine and the server, will be able to connect. So we're not going to use password. We are going to remove passwords. We're going to remove password from our connection, because most of the brute force attacks is done through guessing of password. So we want to just remove password, lock in completely. So after we generate those keys, those key pairs, that's the secret and public key, we'll copy our public key and put it on our remote server. From there, we're going to disable root lock-in completely, and we'll also change our SSH default port from 22 to a custom port, because the way we connect to our server is through a port which is 22. So something like this, if I type my name, all right, at my IP address, which is 127.0.0.1, so this is a local host, all right, this is a local host port, and then we put dash p, all right, so you put dash p, that's port, and you put 22. Now before you hit enter, before you connect, this is an SSH connection, but it's a local host. So this is the port 22. You can remove that port 22 and leave it as default. Now let's go back and then put SSH, because if you have to connect through SSH, you need to put SSH like this, and then we hit enter. Now we're going to enter our server password. Now as I enter my password, you're not going to see anything. This is a security measure from Linux, so you're going to see it as blank, but actually the password is there. So we hit what? Enter, and we are what? We are logged in to the server. All right, you see something happened. We are logged in. Notice that I put port 22. Let me disconnect it. So Control D is to disconnect. So Control D, I'm out of the connection. Okay, so now let me clear again. Let me clear my screen, and then I'll bring my command back. So when you press the up arrow key, you're bringing your previous run commands. So now let me remove the -p22 and hit enter, and we should be able to still connect, because our Linux is aware of port, or Linux will automatically put -p22. So I'll enter my password again, and we are connected. So what I'm trying to tell you here is that the default -p22, which is port 22, many people know it. They know your port to be 22, so they can use bots to brute force your SSH connection. That's why we have to change our default -22 to something different. That way no one can guess it. Okay, so what we will do is, let me disconnect. All right, so what we will do is we change it to a custom port, which is going to be maybe 2222, but make sure that port is not in use by any of your programs. So we'll put a custom port that no one would know about it, and that way when you are connecting, you're the only one who knows this port. Okay, so let me now take you back, and that's what we'll be doing here. From there, we're going to install what we call fail to ban. That way, even if people manage to brute force your SSH connection, they will be banned after failed attempts. Okay, so after I enter 3 failed attempts or 2 failed attempts, my IP will be banned for 2 hours, 24 hours, or how many hours you want to specify inside your fail to ban configuration. I hope it's clear. All right, So let's go back, and from there we're going to connect through VNC. And this comes in handy when you forget your SSH password. The only option you can connect or get back to your server is through the VNC connection. And I have a program here called VNC Viewer. I'll be showing you how to use that software to connect to your server. It's not always a recommended way of using your server, so it's only for temporal instances. A case where you forget your SSH password, then you can connect through your VNC, and this VNC also has its own password that you can connect to your server. From there, I'll show you how to monitor your server, which is very, very important. Server monitoring is important. You have to know your server analytics. So let me remove this, and there's a tool called VN-Start L. So I will show you this. I will be installing this package VN-Start to monitor our server. All right, our traffic, our bandwidth usage, our transfers, and our received data. So this -L stands for live. So we're going to monitor our live traffic. All right, so this is a local machine and there's nothing running, so you can see 0 received and 0 transferred. This tool will print out all the information, all the needed information for you. So Control C will actually cancel it, and it's going to show you your traffic statistics. But because I'm using this on my local PC, you're not seeing any of these statistics. So I'll close that and we'll continue looking at helpful server commands. I'll show you how to run certain commands on your server. It's good to understand these commands, so I'll be showing you what those commands do. From there, there's what we call LAMP stack, which is Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. You need it in order to run a website. Without the Linux operating system, you can't run your website. Without Apache, you can't run. Without MySQL, you can't run. And without PHP, you can't run your site. So we'll be installing LAMP stack. From there, we're going to install what we call Composer. This comes in handy when you're working with Laravel applications. We also install WordPress on our virtual private server. From there, we'll look at how to install PHP scripts on our virtual server. After that, I'm going to show you how Linux file system work. From there, we'll also look at how to back up your server resources. Note that I'll be adding more videos to this playlist, so keep an eye on this channel. All right, so thank you very much for watching this introductory video. You can always come back to this video or this link, which is my course outline. I'll link it in the description of this video for you to get updates. All right, so thank you, and I will see you in our crash course. Bye bye.